Welcome to another episode of The Financially Free Investor, where you will learn information and strategies on how to become financially independent by investing in real estate, something that is not taught openly in our society today. Financial freedom matters so you can live a bigger life, retire early, and do what matters most to you. Get ready to hear tried and true methods to becoming financially free with your host, Jordy Clark.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome into another episode of The Financially Free Investor. Truthfully, this week kind of caught me off guard. We had a lot going on. Market's been nuts. And here it is, Thursday evening, and I have not recorded a podcast for tomorrow, Friday. So I'm a slacker. I'm sorry. You get me on my iPhone as I drive home. So here's a couple of things I want to talk about in today's market. And I feel like I've talked a lot about the market lately. Here's the reality, though, guys. I think if you're listening pretty frequently in 2022, all of this material is super relevant to real estate investors, stock market investors, any type of investor, anyone looking to improve their financial situation. I listened to, it was like 30 minutes. I actually listened to the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell. He came out the end of last week, and, everyone is like, oh, they're raising rates, and here's what he said, and they have all these articles, and I was like, you know what, they're all saying different things. I don't know which article to believe, so I'm going to go listen to his talk and make my own decisions. So I just popped on YouTube, found it, and I think CNBC or somebody had a recording of it. At any rate, I was listening to Jerome Powell talk about the economy. And just to give you a little context, if you aren't a nerd like me, if you don't know who Jerome Powell is, I'm going to give just a very brief, high-level overview of how our financial system works for 2 seconds so that you can kind of understand his role to play in it. So way back when Mr. J.P. Morgan established his bank in the early 1800s or early 1900s, whichever century it was, he kind of got together with a couple other people that had banks, and they created, there's a fascinating book on how this all happened. I've listened to most of it, but the Audible version is like 20 hours long. So you can understand why I'm trying to just briefly describe this in 2 minutes. They kind of all got together on this island. It's called Jekyll Island. And they created a body that's meant to govern banks. Okay. This is called the Federal Reserve. And contrary to its name, it is not federal, and they have no reserves. So they just named it the Federal Reserve. A lot of people call it the central bank, which I would say that's probably a more accurate name for it. But basically, they govern monetary policy for the United States, for the dollar, for banks, and they kind of run the show. So what they say goes. That's literally the 2-minute version. If you want to learn more, go buy the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. G. Edward Griffin wrote it. Phenomenal book, fascinating, and you'll learn more about the banking industry in 20 hours than you ever learned. I don't care how much post high school education you do or don't have. It goes just in depth on everything. Anyways, there's a chairman that's elected to run the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve established a bunch of different banks, and, they're collectively known as the Fed. So there's a Fed in St. Louis. I think there's one in San Francisco. Anyways, there's like 13 of them all throughout the nation. So, and they all kind of get together and talk about, the economy and interest rates and unemployment and inflation and just everything that goes on with the dollar. They look internationally, they look nationally, all of that. So he oversees all of it. It's kind of like a shadow banking system, if you will. Anyways, in his 30-minute speech, and I'd encourage you to go watch it, I think his actual speech is like 12 minutes, and then reporters are asking him questions, and he does what any great politician does, and they like side skirt the question and talk about something else and don't answer it directly. They're just very indirect and whatnot. But anyways, when he spoke, he said, look, here's where we're at. We're at like 8% inflation, how they calculate inflation. Asset values are super high. Real estate is unaffordable as far as the pricing goes. And real estate is a big portion of how they look at inflation. Car values, there's cars selling for more than MSRP. Food is doubled, gas is doubled, energy is doubled. All of this stuff is getting really expensive. And so he said, look, we're raising interest rates. So what they did is they raised the interest rate that they lend to other banks at, the Fed funds rate. And then so banks, they can borrow from the Federal Reserve at 3% interest. Well, then they go and they just basically lend us the money at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, whatever. And they make the spread in between where Fed funds rate is and whatever they're lending it to you and I. So they're borrowing money, guys. That's how the banking system works. Anyways, he said, look, I get that this is going to be very uncomfortable and we are going to stop the economy. It's been clipping along at a pretty good pace for a decade. Inflation has been good up until all of a sudden, this year when inflation became out of control, without fully acknowledging that a big part of the problem is Congress was just literally writing these stimulus bills and checks and just handing out free money to everyone. And then they're shocked that we have runaway inflation. That's, in my opinion, a big part of the reason that we're having all the inflation we're having. Well, anyways, he came out and said, look, this inflation is a bigger problem than what we are about to do. And he said, what we're about to do essentially is going to throw us into a recession. It's going to cause unemployment. It is going to cause companies to go bankrupt. Americans are going to suffer. And he said, however, it's only going to be a small subset of America that suffers. And with inflation, everyone suffers. I partially agree with that. Inflation doesn't affect the wealthy and super wealthy as much as it affects the everyday person. But the reality is not everyone's going to lose their job in a recession. And if we continue to have 8% inflation, everyone is going to suffer. So I, for the most part, agree with what they're saying in their thesis. But he basically said, look, there's going to be layoffs. We know that by increasing interest rate, we're going to slow demand on cars. And more specifically for us and you guys, we know that we are, by raising interest rates, and it is going to bring real estate prices down. He flat out said it, but he said, look, this is needed. We realize that the game is going to change for real estate owners and investors. But at the end of the day, they didn't say it was going to be forever. He actually came out and said, hey, look, our projection is that rates are going to come back down in 2025. So it's going to be a period of 18 to 24 to 36 months of discomfort for a lot of people, especially in some sectors. However, it's better than the alternative, which is if we continue to have 10% inflation, that gets very unsustainable very quickly. So with that being said, in my opinion, here's how you guys can profit from everything that's going on. So we've gotten 5 different mortgage quotes for 5 different real estate clients, and all of those interest rates vary from like 6.5% to 9.5%, right? There's a big swing on every lender out there right now for different loan programs and different risk tolerances that banks have and all of this stuff. So here's 3 key takeaways for you guys, given the higher interest rates that we are all experiencing. First is, I personally am no longer going to be paying off or prepaying or paying early or trying to pay down any of my debt at like 3% or 4%. I'm not paying any of that early. Okay. I'm just going to take all of the extra cash flow and throw it in an account and beef up my reserves. So I'd encourage you guys to do the same thing. That was a key takeaway I had listening to him. Is he basically said, there's going to be some pain, there's going to be discomfort. And I would personally rather have more cash available for whatever may be coming than less cash. So we're looking at that. Second thing is we are trimming our personal and business budgets. So we're kind of cutting out all of the fat, all of the non-necessary expenses. We're looking at how we can reduce our monthly burn rate in the business. We're looking at how we can reduce our monthly burn rate in our personal life, while also simultaneously going, okay, where is the opportunity to increase our income, right? Because this is how you get towards financial freedom: is you decrease your expenses in some way, shape, or form, and you increase your income so that gap of disposable money you have to invest or reinvest or redeploy gets bigger. Because the quicker you can do that, and I don't care where you're at, if you're just starting or if you're, going at a pretty good pace, the more you can do that and reanalyze and cut and go, okay, well, maybe instead of going to Disney World, we're going to go to Disneyland. And maybe instead of staying at this hotel, we're going to stay at this one because it saves us $100 a night. We're going to be a little bit more scrappy than we used to with our budget, but also realize like the other part of the equation is we got to figure out how to make more money. So there's going to be opportunities. And this is where it gets to my third takeaway. There is going to be a lot of opportunities. And in fact, I just closed on 2 and I just walked through a third where you can go and we can negotiate seller financing right now for 3 different reasons. One is, gosh, if you go and borrow from a bank right now, it's going to cost you 7 to 9% interest. Okay. But if you can find a seller who's motivated, who maybe doesn't have a ton of equity and they can't just drop the price $100,000 to sell it, but they've got a 4% interest rate, you can seller finance it and you can take over those payments, and you can have a 4% interest rate in today's environment when everyone else is paying 7 to 9%. Okay. So that's one takeaway. And then this even works on flips. So the 2 properties we closed on today, they're going to be long-term rentals. There's going to be a minimal amount of cash flow. It's essentially going to be enough to cover whatever maintenance comes up. Like they're not crazy cash flow plays. We were able to work through with that seller though, and instead of a 30-year loan, this guy owned them outright. So we did a 40-year loan, which dropped our payment, and we have a balloon payment in 10 years at 5% interest, which is, it's literally almost half of what we were quoted from some DSCR or debt coverage ratio loan programs. Okay. So seller financing is going to be key. And it's a win for the seller because then they get to drag that taxable gain out over, 10 years, and they get to make a lot more money in interest, and they get the residual income that everyone's looking for, without any of the hassle and headache of maintenance or management. So that can be a win. And on seller financing, you can also buy flips. So I was talking to a good buddy of mine who lends hard money, and typically hard money interest rates, they charge 2 percentage points of the loan amount as a origination charge, 2 points. So if it's a $500,000 loan, you're getting charged a $10,000 fee just for them to lend you the money. Oh, and by the way, they charge you 12% interest. So that's actually probably going to be going up for everyone here in Utah, especially with mortgage rates where they're at. I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing hard money go to 2 points and 15%, 2 points and 17%, 3 points and 15%. It's just going to get more expensive as other forms of capital get more expensive. That's just how the game goes. So as you're flipping, if you can take over somebody's loan for a year and then go in and fix the property up, even if you have to cash out their equity, you can save so much money in interest by seller financing it for a little bit, fixing it up, and then reselling it. So that's kind of the third big takeaway I had. And, I think I covered the three different points of the third point, which was important. But at the end of the day, take a look at your expenses, see where you can cut, see where you can get more creative, see how you can get scrappier, while also having the abundance mindset of going, okay, where can I make more income? How can I make more income? What can I do? Is it wholesaling a house? Is it finding a house and calling an investor and saying, hey, I know of this property, and I know the sellers can take less than market because they're looking to sell it quick or whatever, and then you get a bird dog fee or a wholesale fee or however you can choose to tie it up and capitalize on that opportunity, because what we focus on expands. So if we just focus on I gotta pay debt off and not spend any money, and that's what you're gonna get, right? But if you choose to focus on both sides of that equation, where you go, okay, well, I need to be cognizant of my expenses and know, hey, maybe I'm living a little outlandish here and I need to cut back here, while also going, okay, there's an opportunity out there to make an extra $10,000 this month. How am I going to do it? And by asking yourself how, you'll figure out a way. So with that being said, guys, those are three big takeaways I had that we are personally implementing in our both business and personal budgets in life as we continue to navigate higher and higher interest rates. This is going to be our new reality. We're going to have high interest rates for a little while. So get ready for it, gear up, figure out how you can make deals work, because the only deals that are closing right now. Oh, and by the way, along the Wasatch Front, I looked it up, and volume is down 25% right now. So 25% less houses are closing than they did the last 5 years in a row. So fun fact, there is a way. You just have to figure it out, find out, and you're going to have to grind a little bit more. The last couple of years have been easy for investors. Anything you buy goes up and everyone looks like a genius. But now is where the tide is going to go out, and people are going to see who the creative ones are, who the deal makers are, and it's going to be a massive opportunity to build massive wealth. So with that being said, guys, I'm here to help you on your march to financial freedom, your march to your first million, whatever your financial goals are. And most importantly, I want you to live a great lifestyle, a great life, because memories are the new currency. With everything going on, the best thing you can do is create memories with your family, create memories with your loved one, because tomorrow is not granted. It's not given. Every day's a gift, and rent is due every day. So with that, guys, signing off. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Financially Free Investor. If you found value in this episode or know someone who would find value in this information, please share with them, subscribe, and send us a review.